Hello everyone, Posey here, and welcome to my rapid review of both Barbie and Oppenheimer as a combined video. And this has taken a while to come out due to personal reasons, but it is finally out, and I would like to get started talking about these two movies, which I saw very shortly after I came back from my Europe trip, because, well, it started out as a meme, because the movies Barbie and Oppenheimer were releasing on the same day, and they were tonally extremely different, so people made an internet phenomenon out of it, and I decided I might as well hold a Discord vote on which I should watch first. And people voted Oppenheimer on my server, so I went to see Oppenheimer first, and then I went to see Barbie like 2 days later, so within the same general range of time, I watched both movies. And I'm going to be talking about Oppenheimer first, because well, it was the first one I saw. So let's get right into Oppenheimer. Now, Oppenheimer is a historical drama that's also kind of like a character study on Oppenheimer. And it's about kind of like the morality of dropping the bomb and like how that affected him and his life. It is very much not a movie about the bomb. The bomb is, of course, a huge part of it, but it is not what the movie is about. The movie is about the man, Oppenheimer, and the life he lived outside of the bomb, and how like the bomb played into his life specifically. And the movie doesn't really take much like moral stances, doesn't really take a side. It just kind of like explores Oppenheimer's life. And this is really relieving to me, because I was under the impression that there was a very big chance this could be like a shining endorsement of the bombing of Japan, like kind of like a propaganda film. It is Christopher Nolan, and Christopher Nolan has had some issues with that in the past. But I think Christopher Nolan didn't really lean into that angle here. Again, he didn't really take a stance. He more or less, he dedicated the movie to like kind of studying Oppenheimer as a character and as a person, rather than like trying to justify like the bomb. Which was what I was a bit worried about going in, because like it could have been like a jerk off fest for the bomb, and like how it was totally the right thing to do. And I mean, that would have been a really crummy experience. Because obviously I don't agree with that. But not to get like too much into that. Yeah, I mean, it was a good movie. Very good, I would say. Very interesting. The start was a little bit confusing to me. I kind of eased into it a lot better once the actual like bomb making process started. But I feel like it retroactively began to make more sense. And it's not told linearly, which is really cool in my opinion. It's kind of like it's kind of like a non-linear story, and Christopher Nolan does a lot of cool things with that. And of course, the cast is extremely good. Cillian Murphy, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It might be Killian, but regardless, he does a great job as Oppenheimer himself. There's other people like Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, obviously very famous people who do a good job in their roles. They got a lot of like random like actors in this movie. Like they got Devin Bostick, Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Like that's fucking hilarious to me. But yeah, a lot of good actors in this movie. I think they all killed it. Of course, Florence Pugh is also extremely popular, and so is Emily Blunt, and they do a good job in their role as well. Now, yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting movie to me, because I'm very much into history and like the discussion around like stuff like this. And I do like that the movie is more of a character study, and it's not like some sort of propaganda film. It's just like, it just talks about who Oppenheimer was and kind of the things surrounding his life, and it just looks like a look into the past instead of like any sort of endorsement of the bomb, which is good. I mean, they really do make out the bomb to be like a terrifying fucking thing, and it just weighs on everyone's conscience so much, or at least Oppenheimer's, especially Oppenheimer's. And I just find that angle really interesting. And just all the techniques with like the subjective color scenes and the objective non-color scenes. I thought that was great. I mean, overall, really fantastic movie in my opinion. I do throw those words around a lot, so I mean, it's not a perfect movie. I didn't like love it to bits, but I did still quite enjoy myself with it. Now on to Barbie. I mean, I thought about trying to, like, criticize aspects of Oppenheimer, but, like, I guess besides the fact that the start was just a bit confusing and I had to ease into it later, I don't really have that many issues with it. With Barbie, I do have one big issue, but most of the movie, very good as well. I was honestly really, like, I was really, like, pleased by, like, how well I enjoyed it, because I'm not exactly a Barbie fan. I mean, I didn't really grow up with the dolls. Um, I didn't really know, like, what much about Barbie before I watched this movie or before I saw the promotional material. But because of the Barbenheimer trend, I just had to walk in, and I'm pleased to report, actually a really good movie. Like, I honestly really liked it. I thought there were tons of hard-hitting emotional beats, which I thought it was just going to be funny. Like, I thought it was just going to be a comedy. And don't get me wrong, it was. There were lots of funny jokes, lots of hard hitters. Did laugh quite a few times. I actually almost laughed out loud, which I rarely ever do in movies. Like, very rarely. But I think I actually did end up stifling a laugh at like one or 2 points in the movie. Um, because it was just that funny. So yeah, I mean, lots of good jokes, but there's also the hard-hitting emotional moments that I just did not expect. I thought it was going to be a full satire for the entire runtime, but, like, there's actual points being made about deconstruction of Barbie as an idea and, like, just general society, which I thought was really cool. And they tied into, like, a pretty emotional story as well about, like, you know, Barbie trying to, you know, find out more about herself and just, like, kind of, like, reject the world that she was raised to be a part of, just reject the box she was made to fit into. And I find that really compelling. And the acting, of course, the actors do an incredible job in this movie. Of course, Margot Robbie is, like, the perfect person to cast as Barbie. And of course, Ryan Gosling also killed it as Ken. Like, Ryan Gosling, it's so obvious how much fun he had playing that character. I knew you have fucking Michael Cera as Alan. That was just gold. And fucking John Cena as Ken made just brilliant casting. The casting was so on point in both these movies. And just also the set design and the creativity of, like, the effects in this movie, really fucking awesome. And I obviously, let me just return to Oppenheimer. Obviously, the set design in Oppenheimer is also amazing, and so is, like, the cinematography. Cinematography is great in both movies. These are aspects I didn't really touch on that much. But yeah, they look amazing. Barbie has a lot of, like, quirky effects that I say quirky in, like, a good way. And they all play really well into the comedy, and they fit the theme of the movie because obviously it's part of Barbie Land. That's just how it is. Now getting into minor spoilers for Barbie. Well, actually, kind of major spoilers for Barbie. I'm warning you about this now, so I don't have to put spoiler in the fucking title like I usually do. I'm warning you about this now, so that you can turn back or, like, skip past if you want to avoid spoilers. But basically, my one problem with the movie is that it does seem kind of, like, shallow in some areas in terms of its societal critiques. Like, it doesn't really offer that much. Like, obviously, in some areas, it definitely is offering a lot. Like, there's obviously, like, criticisms of toxic masculinity in there that I think are pretty well handled and have, like, a good emotional payoff, like with the Kens, especially. I thought that their part of the movie was really well done in, like, kind of, like, deconstructing toxic masculinity and stuff like that. In terms of, like, feminism, I've seen some, like, arguments about how the movie is kind of shallow with that, and I mean, I thought they were pretty convincing. And yeah, I mean, I retroactively thought about the movie that way too, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's not, like, super deep. There's some problems with it, and I think the main problem I have is there's not really that much critique against Mattel, who, by the way, Mattel are characters in this movie. Like, the Mattel board are, like, a bunch of side characters. Will Ferrell plays, like, the Mattel CEO. And they're, like, canonically the people who control Barbie Land, and they, like, run this whole society. And, like, knowing that, it kind of makes them sound like they're villains because they're forcing everyone into these boxes, and they're making people's lives kind of miserable, like the Kens, for example. So they seem like obvious villains, and when you may get to see them, they're obviously, like, kind of, like, incompetent goofballs, and there's many jokes about that. And it is funny, don't get me wrong, but again, I did expect them to be villains, and it seemed like the movie was kind of hinting at some sort of, like, corporate critique. But at some point, I feel like maybe, like, the actual company, Mattel, who were heavily involved in making this movie, kind of stepped in and forced them to tone it down, because, like, the ending of the movie. Okay, so I generally like the ending. I think it's a pretty good ending. But the one problem I have is that, like, after the Kens get, like, kind of pacified, like, they realize, oh, we don't have to tie our self-worth to women or whatever, you know, like, we can just be happy. We're enough. We're Kenuff, as the saying goes. But after that, like, they then run into the Mattel board, and I expected the Mattel board to then be like the final boss that they all had to team up against, because like they're gonna overthrow like the Mattel board who fit them into these boxes in the first place. But then like fucking they just give the Mattel board like some suggestions on how to improve society, and they just say, okay, we're gonna do that. And then the movie just fucking ends. Well, no, obviously it doesn't end, but like the conflict does, is what I mean. And I'm just sitting there like, what the hell? Like, well, no, a corporation would not simply just listen to that. A corporation would listen so much as it can improve their bottom line, but they're not going to actually meaningfully improve society in any way. And that's not going to be achievable by just having a nice discussion with them. That's just not how the world works. And I mean, it is a movie, but I just thought it was really lame. Like, they didn't really tackle that much. They didn't really go into the corporate critique side of things as well as I expected them to, because it did really feel like they were building up to those Mattel board guys being the real like challenge to overcome, and then they just get convinced to stop being bad, which is really weird to me, and it does feel jarring. It feels like Mattel themselves stepped in and told the movie makers, oh, just kibosh any of your potential plans to make us the villains. Just make us goofy, silly guys. And of course, the Mattel board shenanigans were fun as gags. I think I liked them. I don't think, I know I liked them. I laughed multiple times, or at least came close to it, as I said. I laughed multiple times in the theater, or came close is what I mean. I did enjoy it, but I felt like there was a lot to be desired with how they were handled in the end. And that's just kind of my main problem with the film. But it isn't really a huge problem that ruined my enjoyment. I think the movie's heart was ultimately in the right place, even if it does have some problems with its critiques. The fact that it even attempted them is kind of brilliant for a film this big, so it is pretty commendable, even if there are areas to be improved. So, overall, very good movie. Same with Oppenheimer. I genuinely very much enjoyed both of them, and I'm glad that this kind of meme started this word of mouth chain that got people to watch them, because it really feels like word of mouth is becoming a huge factor in what movies people choose to see. And this is just kind of like a brief side tangent, I guess. I'm just gonna give you a little bit of tidbit of information. Indiana Jones 5 was a movie that I also went and saw. I didn't make a rapid review of this because I just felt like there wasn't much to say. I went and saw Indiana Jones 5 in theaters with my dad and the rest of my family. And I thought it was all right. Like, I enjoyed it decently, but it didn't really do anything new. It was still just like an Indiana Jones story. It didn't really offer anything new or creative to the table. And that movie hasn't really been doing that well in the box office. And meanwhile, I went and saw, like, Oppenheimer and Barbie because I heard about them as word of mouth, and I've seen so much online discussion about them. But I haven't seen anyone talk about Indiana Jones 5, which is crazy to me because it's a huge franchise, a massive IP. And I guess the reason is, if you're not offering anything new to the table, you're not going to drag in, like, new viewers. The only people who are going to watch those movies that are, like, just franchise continuations are people who are nostalgic for them, who grew up with them. Because when we went to see Indiana Jones 5, I only went because my dad wanted to see it. Like, I wouldn't have gone to see it myself, most likely. I might have, like, waited until it came out on streaming, but I wouldn't have fucking gone to theaters to see it. It wasn't high on my priorities list. But, like, yeah, I mean, like, it was all just, like, people who were pretty old compared to me, like, people who grew up with Indiana Jones, lots of adults, and that's the main audience, and, like, they weren't dragging in any new people, and that's probably why the online discussion didn't really center around stuff like Indiana Jones 5. It's also probably why the movie hasn't been performing well, because you have to bring in new viewers. Meanwhile, something like Across the Spider-Verse had a fucking boatload of online discussion, and it doesn't have, I mean, it does have some nostalgia factor because it's a Spider-Man movie, but it does so many new things. It drags in so many new people. And of course, I wanted to see that with or without my dad goading me. And same with Barbie and Oppenheimer. I think it's really cool that we're starting to see movies succeed when they do creative things and they put a lot of effort in and they make an effort to be like, more original, do more inventive stuff. Because these are two very inventive movies, in my opinion, and I'm glad they're getting the attention that they are. Because I think it's deserved in the cinema landscape. And I just wanted to tack that little tidbit on the end right there. Because I know it's been a while since I made a new video, and I don't mind just like taking a bit more time on this one and making it longer so we can have a bit more of a discussion. I would love to hear your thoughts on like all the points I've made in the comments about Barbie, about Oppenheimer, and about general cinema landscape, because I do enjoy having these discussions. And with that out of the way, I'm just gonna head off now, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day, and goodbye.